Hey guys, we will start the webinar in a few minutes time. I'm just waiting for a few more people to arrive. We'll get cracking in 2 to 3 minutes. Just before we do start, can I gauge that you can hear me please? There is a little chat box on the right hand side of your screens. If you just say yes, I can hear you in there, that'll be brilliant. Thank you. Okay, that's working, thanks. There's still a few people connecting. Let's give them a few more minutes. Okay, webinar starting in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to this free Love Docman webinar focusing on workflow technologies which are available within your Docman 7 system. The version of Docman which you'll be seeing on this webinar is the latest version of Docman. Some of the screens that you will look at may be slightly different, but the content of this webinar will be still useful to both new and old versions. Please remember that the latest version of Docman is a free upgrade, but is currently on a phased rollout plan, so keep an eye out for system updates at your surgery. Workflow offers a tool which allows you to send scanned or electronic correspondence to both your GPs and general admin staff as a whole. It then offers tools to allow you to do things like annotate, ask for jobs to be completed by other parties, or simply just acknowledge that the letter has arrived, and then you can complete it. Workflow offers similar tools to both admin and the clinical side of the practice for jobs to be completed in a speedy fashion. This webinar is going to cover all aspects of workflow in a detailed manner. We will also, towards the end, talk in detail about the configuration options which are available to you And also at the end of the webinar session, I'll be offering a questions and answers session, which you can use the chat box on the right hand side of your screens to post anything. I'll stay on for about 10-15 minutes after we've finished just answering those questions. Okay guys, so let's start by logging into Docman, and first off I'm going to log in as a scanning and filing user, and I'm going to show you the screens that are relevant from a point of view of actually putting the correspondence into a patient's notes. If there's a few pauses as I'm going through, that's because I'm waiting for the screen to refresh for all of you, so just bear with me, there might be slight pauses as I'm going through and explaining the screen. Okay, I'm going to enter my password, and this user is called Daniel, and I'm going to press sign in. Okay, so this is the new Docman 7 system. To some of you that might be quite a shock. It does look slightly different to the older version, but I can assure you that most of the options that you will be using are available on there. You just go into them slightly differently. But we have been innovative and we've created a lot of new things for you to use as well. Okay, so I'm going to enter into the File Documents section. I've already scanned some letters on, so they're all there ready for me to process. I'm going to use IntelliSense. The reason being is I just want that to be really fast. I'm just going to use that option just up there, just so that we can get to the part that I want to show you and concentrate on the workflow side really quickly. So I'll press the File Document button. That's thinking about that. I'm just going to quickly press Continue, bypass this screen, and I'm going to make sure that Workflow the document is ticked. So if there's any surgeries that are listening to this webinar at the moment that don't use Workflow, this is the first crucial option that you need to enable in order for the actual letter to be sent to your GPs or to maybe the coding staff first, because each practice does work differently, and we'll be talking about all the options that are available to you. So I'm going to click Workflow the document. What I'm also going to do, I'm just going to highlight that. Just bear with me a sec, because I think it's important that you are aware of that section just there, and that's the option that we need. Okay, once that's selected, we press File Document. It's going to tell me that the file already exists. Just bear with me, we have used this example quite a few times. I'm going to go File anyway. And it will open this screen. Okay. I'm going to go back to front actually. I'm going to use a broadcast feature, and we'll work ourselves back to the workflow system going on. So with a broadcast option, I've got the ability to send the letter to multiple people all in one go. So with a broadcast, I click on Add Recipient, and the best way to use a broadcast feature is using groups, and groups are available at the top. Okay, so if I wanted to send it, for example, to the admin team, I would just click on admin team there, and then that would fill in the people that are in that team. Now, that's a bit of a naff example, there's only one person in that team, but if I just quickly add recipient again, and maybe choose collaborator admins, you can see that's added a few more people. So you can add more than one group, which that, clearly demonstrated, so that you've got all the people that you want. You can also add recipient and just choose individual people. That's obviously an option that's there. Remove recipient. If I'm clicked on someone, we'll remove them. Clear, we'll clear them off. So that's really straightforward. Let's just add Daniel to that one. Okay. What you would do then is you would just click the send option right at the bottom, and that will send that letter on to that person, and it will have also filed it into your clinical system as well as sending it into Workflow. Okay, let's do one more. Choose a different letter. Let's file this one away. quickly continue on the filing screen and quickly press File, noting that our Workflow the document option has still stayed ticked, which is very important. File document at the top, File Anyway in this instance. And let's explain the sequential option. Now where broadcast, if you look at these little images there, just highlight that. Whereas a broadcast will send it to the people at the same time as demonstrated with the same line, the sequential sends it in an order, so 1, 2, 3 that you can see on the left hand side. So similar to broadcasting that you click Add Recipient, you would choose the people that you want it to go to. So I might start off with Dr. Justin Banks. I am then free to click Add Recipient again and choose Daniel Elliott. And that might be a situation when I know that that letter will definitely be returned to Daniel Elliott after the doctor has seen it. So if you have similar setups in your surgery, then that is a feature that is available to you. And just before we do move on, for the ones that don't use the new iWorkflow part, which I am going to be talking about next, these are the two options that represent themselves at the surgery. The screens might look different, but you will have a sequential broadcast type which allows you to send it in an order. And I'll be honest with you, most of you might use it where you just send it to the doctor and let the doctor then decide on who's going to get it next. And you also have the broadcast feature which allows you to send it to multiple recipients at the same time. That can be a clinical letter, but think about how powerful that might be when you send in something that's maybe non-clinical and it's just to do with maybe maintaining the practice. So that's broadcast and sequential features that you've got. Let me just move back to sequential. I do want to send this to Dr. Justin Banks, which you see there. And I'm going to press send. Okay, so that's demonstrated the features that are available to the old type of workflow. Now we have introduced something called iWorkflow, and the webinar is not just typically all focused on iWorkflow. It will be on both versions, but it will be on both versions using the new screen layout, the Smart UI as we call it. Let's move on to another letter and let's have a look at the iWorkflow options that are available. So I'm filing that. I'm just going to quickly continue. Workflow the document is ticked. So I'll press File Document at the top, File Anyway, and this time I'm going to swap it to iWorkflow. So this is a new version. Okay. Now iWorkflow works slightly differently in that the users that you select are given options which are decision based. What I mean by that is that when you send it to a doctor, for instance, that user will be able to choose a job like read code needed or appointment with doctor needed. And as soon as they click that job, it will automatically go to the right group of people that would action that letter afterwards. Sequential and broadcast don't do that. The onus is very much on the first person that gets it, unless you've added someone else underneath them, to decide on the route of the actual letter. And this is what we thought about in iWorkflow. We thought, well, if we know the people that do certain types of jobs, then we can actually just build that little part into them, the doctor selecting that job or the clinician selecting that job, and then we can automatically route it to the right people. And we can obviously put safety nets in there so that we can actually go back and we can trace if anything's happened. If you think it might have got lost, we can look at that in the safety net and we can find things. Okay, while on iWorkflow, I've got user and I've got group. Okay, so when I click user there, I've got the ability to choose the person that I want. Notice that unlike sequential, I cannot send it to two people at, in one go, okay? The doctor would have to click on duties in their workflow screen to actually say, well, I want this to go to the admin team. I want that job doing, okay? You've also got the facility in this instance to send it to a group, okay? And then if you click that, you've got your groups that you've popped up. So I could say, for instance, pathology department, okay? And that's filled out in there. Now, you might be thinking this is a little bit like the broadcast feature. It's not, okay? There is one key difference, and the difference that you need to understand is that if I send it to this group, the pathology department, the first person that actions that letter, the first person that says, right, I want an appointment making, or I want to send it on to such and such, it gets rid of it for the other people that are in the pathology department. They don't see that letter, okay? Now, if there is any types of letters that you do still need to send in that facility, you do need to, send it as a broadcast where they're all going to action it independently. They're all going to read it. That's why we still offer these features that are available, the sequential and the broadcast, so that you can send them. 99% of the time, a practice letter would necessarily be sent to be sent to a GP. And if not, it may be sent to something like a coder first and then moved on to the GPs afterwards. So the iWorkflow facility gives you the options that you need. Okay, I'm going to click user on there, and I'm going to send it to Dr. Justin Banks. And then I'm going to press send. Okay, so that's one more done. Now I'm going to talk about one more letter, because there's a few more options on there. I'm going to file it. Workflow document is ticked. File. Back on iWorkflow, I'm going to set the user back to Dr. Justin Banks. But I want to fetch your attention down towards the bottom. This line that we've got right down here. Sorry, I can't draw. I'll try and fill it in. There you go. Okay. Priority. Low, normal, high. Okay. Normal will mean that it will enter the person's in tray that you are sending it to in normal chronological order. High will bypass that, and it will bypass anything that is in their in tray, and it will pop it to the top, and it will highlight it in red. Low does the reverse of that. Low is when it's really not an important letter as such, and it's maybe just part of maybe the practice meeting minutes that you might have sent out. I'm not saying that's not important, but in the day-to-day running of your surgery, probably the clinical letters take precedence. So we would say it maybe as low, so that when the doctor gets to the end of the letters, or the clinician gets to the end of the letters, sorry, then they will be able to deal with the stuff that is just for general admin and things like that. I will be honest, I generally see practices sending things as normal and high. But I don't really see low getting too much use. But that doesn't mean to say you haven't got a use for it. Okay. Route before completion. At the moment it's set to no. I do have the facility to set it to yes, and I can choose someone like Daniel Elliott, which is our scanning and filing user. It could be also the person that deals with the read coding. So route before completion offers you a facility to get the document returned to that user automatically when the doctor clicks an action. So let's say he said no action needed and he pressed finish, which are the options that you're going to be seeing later. If we've got the route before completion set to yes, Daniel Elliott, When the doctor said that, it would go then to Daniel Elliott, allowing Daniel to do things like read coding, making appointments if they was needed. Not making appointments, sorry, because that would come back as an action, but let's say read coding as an example. That's how I see this system being used quite a lot. Also, if the doctor sent it on for an appointment, say an admin, an admin appointment like making an appointment, something like that, after the people that have made the appointment have finished with it, because that's still on yes, it would return to Daniel Elliott again. So after it's completed, or after everyone's seen the letter in the workflow system and they've done what they need to do with it, the route on complete will kick in and it will send it to that person. Again, one good use that I have seen it used for is when every letter in a practice needs read coding. So instead of the read coders having to worry about them being put into the root of the letter, or the doctors having to worry about, I need to send this to a read coder as well, if that's employed in the fact that that's ticked and then you choose a read code and it can automatically be set, we'll be talking about that later, then the safety net means that it will always go to that person. Okay, so I'm going to set that to no at the moment because we will be talking about that in a little bit more detail going forward. So I'm going to press send. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close out of my batch manager. Okay, I'm also going to close out of Docman. And on the new version, sorry, my toolbar's in the way. And on my new version, I can do close and I can do switch user. Okay, I'm going to log in as the doctor. Sign in. And there we go, we've got the 3 workflows that we initially sent. Okay, one of them was sent to Daniel Elliott. I didn't choose the doctor on that one, so we did do 4 in total, but one was sent to Daniel Elliott, and you'll be seeing that on the flip side when we log in after that. Okay, so we're getting into the workflow product now. On the new version, we can see that it's represented in green. That's because I haven't been sent any high priority letters, otherwise it would be in red. And it tells you in a numerical format how many there are there. So we have got 3. Okay, and that will obviously change depending on how many you've got. For the ones that are using the older version of Docman still, the workflow system will kind of be on the left hand side in your long list of options, and it'll say workflow, and then in brackets it will have the number of letters that you've got in there. So I will click on that. Okay, let's start with the older types of letters, the ones that have been sent on either a broadcast or a sequential type, workflowing system. Okay, so we're going to start with this bottom one, but before I do go into the actual letter and the kind of day-to-day activities of actioning it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the layout of the screen. So towards the top, and this is the new Smart UI version, so I appreciate that this might look slightly different to some of you. We obviously do want to be moving away from the really old versions of Workflow into iWorkflow, or at least into the Smart UI view. So if there are any of you that don't see this view, if you've got any questions towards the end of the webinar, then please let me know and we can talk about that, and we can maybe set up something going forward to try and help you out if you've got any questions regarding the very old versions of Workflow. Okay, so at the top we've got a tab menu. Okay, by default you will start on document. Because you clicked on that, it will show the physical document towards the bottom. You've got a root tab, which at the moment I'm not going to go into much detail, but the root tells you the audit trail, or the audit trail as is on the letter. So Daniel Elliott sent it. It's now with Dr. Justin Banks. And we've got a management facility. Depending on whether you're an admin user in Docman or not will depend on the amount of options that you see in there. Now, my doctor that I'm logged in as is an admin user, and that just means it's easy for me to show you all the options that we will be talking about towards the end of this webinar session. So I'm going to go back to document. This is where we're going to work. We've got an index screen. This large section just there. It's what I call the index screen. In there. You can use a little, this is a part of the new version, you can use the date option, the patient option and the document option as well as the others if filled out to organise your workflow in tray. Either chronologically, alphabetically, it's up to you. Underneath that is the letter itself, which is obviously very crucial for a doctor or a clinician to be able to look at and do things like highlight. Just show you that on the highlighter pen. Using a highlighter pen to show the highlight feature. There you go. Highlight. For instance, yellow colour. Drag and draw over the area that you want. And that might be hard to see on the webinar. I'm not quite sure if you can see that, but that's shown up as yellow on there. And that could be passed on to, for instance, say a read coder for coding. Save annotations or undo them. I'm going to undo in this instance. And that will just undo anything that you've done. I'm going to cancel as well the option of the annotation box. And that just takes us back to a normal pointer and it allows me to interface with the letter instead of putting any marks on it. 1 of 1. This is a 1-page letter. If it was 10 pages, I'd have 1 of 10, and I'd have little buttons. Sorry, can't show you that. I did only just scan on 1 at a time. Print, rotate, and expand are pretty much self-explanatory, so I'm not going to insult you. You can kind of work out what those do, maybe with the exception of expand, which some doctors and some admin staff do like, because it hides more of the index towards the top and gives them more of a document preview. I personally like a bit of both, so there we go. Okay, so let's go back to the bottom one. Maybe the top one now because I've reordered it by using the options at the top, sorry. This is one that was sent as a sequential or a broadcast feature. Now, in this instance, if I want, and I am going to highlight asthma, I'm going to save the annotations. If I want the coding staff to do that, then what I need to do in this instance is I need to use this reroute option, which you see on the right hand side. So I need to reroute. I'm going to say that the read coder, for instance, is Daniel Elliott. We're just going to send it back to that person, but you would choose your coder there. And then you would press save. Okay. So what's happened there is that's then, just have a look if that's it. That's added into the route the person who is going to get that next, which is Daniel Elliott. Okay, so we've done the first part. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the add free text comment button and I'm going to type in, can you please code this? Now don't get me wrong, in the old version we do have a facility for adding in jobs so that they can click on them, so it's a little bit easier than manually typing it in, but I'm also going to tick that this is an actionable comment. Can you please code this? Okay, what I do then is I press finish, and that letter then goes on its way, and that's, you know, available then for things to be done by Daniel, who will code it. Okay, quite a few steps involved with that, quite a few key clicks. So that is how the old workflow feature, you know, worked. We've moved on a little bit since then, but obviously the workflow feature, even though it is the old version, does still allow you to distribute things around your practice quite well. Okay, so what we've got now is represented with two more letters. We've got two more letters represented, sorry, and these are the ones that have been sent using the iWorkflow feature. Okay, so they've both been sent today, both for this patient, Daniel Harrison. They're both clinical letter regarding ENT, one's oncology, sorry. Just to fetch your attention to another feature that we've got here is search. And then if you type some text in there, I don't know, if I'm looking for the oncology letter, for instance, if I type in oncology and then press return, that's going to filter my index and it's going to show me just the letters that are to do with oncology. Now you're probably not seeing the massive benefit at the moment with just having two letters in there, but you know, you guys can probably tell me that you have a lot more than two letters in your inboxes, and you know, a search facility is going to be beneficial. The inbox becomes filtered, so it's not showing you your true amount of letters in your inbox. So you would drop that down. You've got the clear filter option. Okay, we've also innovated a little bit in terms of the search facilities that you've got, and this will become a little bit more talked about when we come onto the admin side of the workflow screen, but it is available on both sides. It's the quick filter. The patient name is there as a field that you can type in and press return. But you've also got the facility for looking for things like the description of the letter, the organisation, the hospital that it's come from. So just to demo that quickly, let's just see if we've got one for LGI and one's for Nottingham. So if I clicked in there, organisation LGI, press return, that's going to filter again my list out and it'll show me the one that is from Leeds General Infirmary. Click on the inbox again, click Clear Quick Filter, and that will move you back to the entirety of your inbox. Other ones on there, department, person, I won't fill them out, I won't show you each of these options. One brilliant one for when we do move on to the admin side is the outstanding iWorkflow action. So if there's any admin staff listening to this, just think about the possibilities that you've got there. You could have one massive central inbox where letters were coming back to. Could be one group of people. You don't need to duplicate groups. You could just have all your admin staff in one group, your read coders. You could have your people who book appointments in that one group. And then what it can do when they go into their that in-tray, that universal inbox, they could click on one of these options just to show them the work that they are meant to be getting on with. So that's a possibility. That works really nice when you've got more than, you know, you have more than one people, more than, you know, you have the same person in more than one group. That's what I was trying to say there. You could then just revert that to a massive, just a single group, and then you could use this new facility that we've added in 7.12.80, which is the new version of Dotman. Anyway, we're going to come back to that. You're going to see that demonstrated when we move on to the admin side. Okay, so you can filter things out towards the top. Okay, we talked about the actual letter underneath. So let's take a look at the right hand side. Now you do have more options, and that is correct. With an iWorkflow, you have quick steps, which are, if anyone knows, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but if anyone knows what macros are, then that is kind of our version of macros. We call them quick steps. I think that's the easiest way of explaining it, because a lot of you in your clinical systems do know what macros are. You've got some that can be created, user created. We're not going to talk about that just yet because we're going to do that in the management facility later on. And you've got three which are universal. We've got CC. So we've got the ability with an iWorkflow to carbon copy. And I can carbon copy it to either a group or I can send it to an individual. So from a clinician's point of view, I might be reading a letter here that's, about a patient who's really ill, and I want my entire practice, the clinician side anyway at least, to be able to see that, and if they do manage to see him, then they're aware of the illness, and that would maybe be used in conjunction with a CC. Okay, forward option. Now, there is always going to be instances where a letter is maybe sent to the wrong person, or it's better suited at least to be sent on to somebody else. So I'll just move that out of the way because I'm going to talk about them in a bit. And in that instance, then you would use the forward option. And again, you've got the facility to forward to a group. Remember, if you forward it to the group, the first person that responds completes it for the rest of them. That's still the way it works. And you've also got the facility of forwarding it onto a user, and that's traditionally how I see this generally being used in practices. A doctor might have been sent it incorrectly, so they would just forward it on. And it was 2 clicks, isn't it? Sorry, so they click the forward and then they click the user. That could be made into 1 click by using quick steps that users can add themselves. Actions. So we've got add change medications, appointment with doctor, midwife and nurse, and this is a 71280 feature. Not all of you will have this at the moment, but we've got mine hiding a few more that are in there. So if I click show more, it's fetched the full list back. And I've also got the comment section back because sometimes I need to be a bit more bespoke in the fact that I'm asking for an appointment, but I might be asking for that appointment to be done urgently, or I might be asking for it to be done with a particular person. There might just be a bit more that you want to write in, basically. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the first one. I'm going to say appointment with doctor. And I'm going to press finish. That is how easy iWorkflow is. That's moved back to, in this case, it's gone to a group called admin. I'll just do that again. Appointment with doctor. You can see just at the top there it says admin team are going to get that. And that's just moving that back on to whoever's in the admin team. Again, you do want the option there when the first person that gets to it removes it for the rest of them in the admin team, because that's how proper groups work. That's how you don't want everyone to see it, because it would just mean lots and lots of work, basically. So let's do one more example. Okay, we will use the quick steps. We'll talk about that more when we come to the management side, because I am keen that you see how they work and how you can add them yourselves, because that's one of the key things I want to get out of this session. Let's do appointment with nurse. This time I'm going to click add free text comment, and I'm going to type in, from a clinician's point of view, for bandage redress. I might just put needs doing within 1 week's time. I can write as much as I want in there. The box doesn't end at that point. It goes on as much as you want. So you press OK, and then you can press finish. Okay. Now I know a lot of you might be thinking, well, do I press save comments first? Now you used to have to do that, but in this version you can just press finish and it will definitely save that comment for you. It's just one less step that you need to do now. If you're comfortable pressing save comment, then you can do anything. Finish, and that's it. I'm done. There are no documents to display in this current view. Okay, that means the doctors can go home, or maybe not. So literally, once that's finished, that means we're done in this instance. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to log back on as an admin user, the person that we started off with called Daniel. We're going to log in, and we're going to see what those letters look like on the flip side. So I'm going to close Workflow. Okay, I'm going to press the close button just at the top and switch user. And obviously I'm logging in as Daniel in this instance, but more importantly I'm logging in as a member of the admin team. So they've all got that. There is only Daniel in mine, but they've all got these letters that say 9 at the moment in my inbox. So all green, not being sent one that's urgent. Okay, and we're back in the workflow system. Now let me try and find the old letter first, because there's benefits on both sides. Let me try and find the one that was sent with the sequential type letter or broadcast. Right, this is the one. Okay, so this is the one that's the old type of workflow. So again, the layout of the screen is pretty much the same. Okay, I'm not going to explain again about the quick filters, other than in this instance, if I wanted to filter by certain jobs, then I can click appointment with doctor, for instance, and that will just give me the ones that are to do with appointments. Okay, I could do appointment with nurse, and we've got 2. So you can see that quick filter working very well in this instance. Now, I am filtered, so I'm just going to go back to clear quick filter, and that will take us back to the full view that you're seeing presently. Let me just go back to this letter that was the old type workflow, so I'm going to get rid of that one, then we'll talk about the iWorkflow ones as well. Okay. Not that I do want to get rid of it. I'm sure some of you might be using this, but obviously there is more to show on the iWorkflow. That's where the new features have been made. So in this instance, so I can see that Dr. Justin Banks has said, "Can you please code this?" Now, we have got a summarize feature within Docman. Now, that was covered on a webinar on Wednesday. Okay, we will be doing more webinars in terms of coding, and there's a few ways that you can code. You can use the summarize button that's there and do it through Docman, or you could use your clinical system button, and that'll provide you a way of going back into, you know, your clinical system, whether that be EMIS Web, Vision, and some Synergy sites still around at the moment. Okay, I'm running a demo system, so I'm not going to be able to show you that. But that is a crucial button, the clinical system. You know, I sometimes go back to practices and show them how to use the Docman system, and they just generally click down here somewhere, and they're trying to open up EMIS, they're manually typing the patient's name in, and that's not needed. You just click that, and it will automatically, you know, move you over to the right system. Just pretend that box is your clinical system. Okay. Okay. Right, moving back into the letter. So, can you please code this item? We've done that. We've done that whether it's through Summarize or we've done it through Clinical System. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to update that. I'm just going to put action done. You know, a site might, for instance, have some comments like completed that they could quickly click on, and that's perfectly fine as well. And then what they would do is they would say action complete. Just maybe putting their initials in, because grouping in the old versions wasn't brilliant in Docman. You know, I will even say that. So for instance, I'm logged on as Daniel Elliott, so I'd put DE. Okay, and then I'd press finish. And there we go. That's the letter then moved on, and then we're on to a different letter. So let's go back to these ones at the top. These are ones that have been sent to the admin group. And it tells you that in this blurb. It says you've been sent this workflow by Justin Banks. I was asked to perform the following appointment with doctor, who said for bandage redress needs doing within 1 week's time. Okay. And I've got Two options: finish or decline. I'm not going to decline it. I have no reason to decline it, and obviously you would only use that if there is a valid reason. Okay, so once I've done the job by booking the appointment, I'm going to click the finish button, just a little bit like we did with the other letter. I've got more information underneath. I can see the actual audit trail in the history panel. So I can see it was appointment with doctor, and I can see that it's for bandage redress. Eventually you will stop reading that top part when you get used to the system, and you'll be straight into just reading the actual history. You have the quick steps available again, so the facilities are a lot more involved. You know, I can CC it, I can forward it, I can get an opinion. If I want to get an opinion, instead of declining it and saying I can't do this, why not use the get an opinion feature? And then you choose Dr. Justin Banks again, and then that will send it to Dr. Justin Banks for an opinion. Now, sorry, I'm jumping the gun a little bit there. What I should be explaining before get an opinion is that you would add a free text comment, and then you would say what you're asking for, why you're asking for his opinion, in essence. And then once you type that in, you know, then you would say get an opinion, and that will send it with that comment. Otherwise, it might not know instantly why you're asking for an opinion. So in this instance, I'm going to use the clinical system button again. I'm going to click that. That's going to open up the clinical system. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press finish in this instance. And that's gone. Okay, I've done that. You have also got the facility. I know that there's quite a few sites on this webinar at the moment. So some of you will, for instance, after you've done an appointment, you will type in free text. And you will say something along the lines of appointment booked in 2 weeks' time. You probably put the date in all fairness, at 1 o'clock. And then you press finish. Again, if you want to press a save, if you've been used to doing that, then that's fine, but you can just press finish and it will definitely save that with it. So this is another old letter. Again, you're going to have to use the options for rerouting and so on to deal with that. And these are the iWorkflow ones. You will notice a new one from an old one. The old one looks like that with just the finish option, and the options are different. And the iWorkflow ones will give you the finish and decline option. You might also see another button called remove. I'm not seeing that because I'm the only person within the admin group. The remove button allows the users in that group to remove themselves from the actual letter, so it's just left with the others. It will only let people remove themselves if there's it will not let them remove the last person, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, a little bit tongue-tied there, but the last person that's in the actual workflow will not be able to remove themselves. And in this full history box, it definitely tells on them that they've removed themselves from the actual workflow screen. And you can monitor that. So that's what the remove option would do. Okay. So that kind of fetches us to an end of the kind of what you can do with the actual letters that you get. So I'll just quickly, finish a few more off to show you. So this one, it says add change medication. So clinical system. I'll change the medications, and then I'll say add free text comment, meds changed, and I'll press finish, and so on. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at the management facilities that you've got with iWorkflow and with workflow in general. We're first going to do that by looking at the management facilities that are available if you're an admin user within workflow, and then we're going to take it back to the maintain list section, which is available within Docman. I won't be explaining every feature in here. I'm only going to explain the ones that will allow you to get going. And then obviously if you have any questions, you can ask those at the end, and we'll cover them if needs be. Some of them we just don't have the time to go into full detail at the moment on them, so we're going to stick to the ones that we can talk about, the ones that we can do at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to start with the maintenance features. Okay, the first one being quick steps. Okay, quick steps allow you to make macros, allow you to make the system bespoke to yourself, and you do that by clicking Add Quick Step. And let's say I want one that quickly says that I've made the appointment. As we've just seen, trying to do that, it was maybe 2 or 3 clicks. I can do made appointment into 1 click. Made appointment. So that's my description. And then you use the builder, this section just there, to add the steps that you want it to cycle through. It's like making a macro. So add step. Well, I want to say free text comment, and I want to type in there made appointment. I'll just abbreviate that. Then I want to add step again, and I want to assign the finish option. Okay, so I know it's not a massive quick step. It's got 2 options in there, but over the course of quite some time, it's saving you 1 click. Obviously, the scope is for doing a lot more than just 2 clicks. Annotation required, I'm leaving that unticked. That would mean that if I was ticking that I would have to add something like an highlight to the letter, or I would have to add a comment on the letter itself. And that's just kind of put in there as a safety net for when doctors are trying to make quick steps to do with, asking for read codes to be done. In this instance, it's not a read code in or a letter type where I would need an annotation on it, so I'm leaving that unticked. And then the facility to say me only, and then you can make these just private. You don't want others to be using them because they're really just tailor-made to you. If it is useful for everyone, then everyone. Or if this one is just useful for the people in the admin group, I would say group and then admin team. And then obviously it keeps the screens uncluttered for other people that are using the workflow system. So be careful with the everyone option, unless it is one that's kind of good for everybody to use. And then you save it. Now it doesn't do anything from here. You do a close on that option, just at the bottom. And then you go back to document, which is at the top. And then what you can see now is we've got made appointment, and because it's got the little tick symbol, just show you that if you're struggling to see where it is, it's the it's this one there. If you click it once, it's going to actually, so this one's an appointment, it will quickly get rid of it. It will put on the comment made appointment, and it will move on to the next one. Now that might have looked like it's not done anything, but I can show you this is another letter. We sent quite a few through that were appointment type ones. So that is quick steps. Okay, the next one is views. Okay, views are very powerful, and this is what I'm talking about in terms of safety net in the system, so that maybe from an admin point of view, I can track down where things are. Okay, and if I click on views, we've got a few that are built in, like completed, documents with actions, and my workflows with actions, but the true power lies in the fact that you can click add view. Okay. Now I might want to, from a how can I explain this best? How would you be looking? Let's say you've got a locum doctor in, and you wanted to, he said he can use Docman, so you've been sending letters to him, and you just want to make sure that these letters are getting done. So I might just put the description as with locum GP. Available to everybody? Well, no. I'm just going to say available to me only in this instance, but you can set up groups like Docman admins, and then you can say it's available to those people. So you've got a facility of controlling who can look in people's inboxes and who can't, and obviously you need the access rights to be able to do what I'm showing you at the moment. You get a long list of criteria that you can fill out. Now it's not all required, that's the good news here. For instance, if I just wanted to look with locum GP, then I would use the status field. I would say with a selected user, and I would choose, and I'm just going to pick Dr. Justin Banks in this instance, I would choose the locum GP that you've got, and then you would save it. Okay, if I close out of that and go back to document, where we saw the inbox drop-down facility earlier where we use the clear filter, you've got these boxes that we're talking about now. So with locum GP is there. Okay, so obviously there's nothing with Dr. Justin Banks, so that's a bit of a naff example. So what I'm going to do is just go back to my inbox. Let me just forward my letter back to Dr. Justin Banks. Okay, and then if I go back into with locum GP, there we go. That's proof that it does actually work, and you can see what's in there. But the facilities that you've got as an admin user are a little bit more detailed than that. Look what I've got under quick steps. I've got CC, I've got forward to me. So you actually have control of these letters. So if that locum GP left that one at the end of the day, you could then just say, oh well, okay, it's not important, I'll just forward it on to the other GP that's going to be back tomorrow. You can add comments and say, what are you doing with this? Maybe that's for a GP to be doing, looking after maybe F2s and things like that. They can update the actual letters that are in there. So the facilities that you've got are quite involved. They can be tailor-made to how you want to have them in the fact that you can create as many views as you want and you can restrict them if needs be. And that's that. Okay. Workflow policies, just quick mention on that. I'm having a lot of sites at the moment ringing me saying that they can't click the finish button or they can't do particular things. If that's ever a case at your site, then have a look at this workflow policies, because sometimes what you're seeing is when finishing an iWorkflow, the following user roles must add an action and or comment before they can finish. So do you know when you log into Dotman for the first time, it will have asked you if you're a clinician, a scanning and filing user, a system admin, and so on and so forth. Now, if one of these are clicked, then they do have to add a comment before they'll get the finish option available, and that might not be what they want to do. They might just want to, click the finish button to get rid of it straight away. So just bear in mind these workflow policies. They can obviously be set up for powerful things in that you only want, a doctor to be able to click finish if they have added a comment. So, it does have its uses, but just bear that in mind. Admin use, really. Not everyone will see that. Reset layout is very basic. It'll reset the screen layout. Reset columns does the columns that you've got just in there, look. So nothing really to explain on those. Workflow sorting, you've got the option to say newest workflows first or oldest workflows first. A lot of GPs want to say oldest first so that they're dealing with the ones that they've kept for quite a time before getting into the new stuff. So that's something to think about. And then hotkeys. There's just a crib sheet on what the actual F buttons do on the keyboard, so that you can see those. Click the back button. It takes you back into this section. Okay, we're drawing to an end, but there is one last area that I do want you to be aware of, and that's under Settings, Maintain Lists. If you're using the old version of Dotman, it would be on the left hand side and it would just say Maintain Lists in that section. I want to fetch your attention to the workflow section that you've got here. We're not going to explain all of them. For instance, we've done views and we've done quick steps. But let's talk about the other facilities that you've got. So recipient groups. So they're my groups that I've got set up. So the admin team is there. That's how it got back to Daniel Elliott. If I double click on that, you can see that Daniel Elliott is the only person in that group. Now you've got quite, in the new version anyway, you've got quite a few new tools that are available here. But the easiest way of just doing that is you've got Manage Users. And I can click somebody else. and I can press accept and then save. But you've also got new dynamic lists that are available, so you've got the facility of saying, right, well, let's choose the people by role, and then it will give you all the people that have that role assigned to them, whether they're a clinician or not. So that's a brilliant facility. Instead of having to add them one by one, you can just say, well, let's create a group called all clinicians, and then just set it by role as clinical user. Not going to do that. I'm just going to save that one on a predefined list. Would you like the group users to be reflected in the active workflow list? I'm going to say yes, and that just means that the new person that you add would get the workflows. You see, it's merged the workflows now. It didn't used to do that. It was only the new stuff that would come in. So again, another benefit to the new version. Okay, let me just postpone this, otherwise we might have it shutting down. Sorry about that. Comments. I didn't really talk about this much when we was doing the workflow system, but I was adding things like, appointment made for such and such time, or, rang patient, no answer. You can put these into your comments section. And you can press the save option. You could also, if you're using the old version of workflow, this is where you would assign it as an action, but I'm not going to do that in this instance. And that'll be reflected. Sorry, I'm just chopping and changing a little bit here, guys, but if I go into workflow, you can see that we've got a rang patient, no answer. So if I was dealing with this one, for instance, which says, just read it, appointment with doctor. If I tried to ring them and they weren't available, I could quickly do a rang, no answer. And this is where you do use the save comment, not finish. And that just puts it into the history box. And I'd move on to another letter then. Okay, quickly moving back. Settings, maintain lists, and let's have a look at actions. So I said actions were decision based, and they are. So if, for instance, we were using the appointment with doctor one, it goes to the group of admin team, which we've just made. So that's the recipient. On finish, what happens when the doctor clicks the finish button? Well, it moves to the next recipient, or finishes it if there's no one that is the next recipient. So that's to do with the finish button that's built into the system. And then we saw the decline button, which I generally wouldn't use, but what the decline option does is it says return to sender, so that it goes back up the tree so that it doesn't just get lost in the ether. Okay. By default, it'll try and put it onto finish or move to next recipient, which you don't want, so bear that one in mind. And obviously, if you want to add any new ones, instead of editing them, you just press add. You put in an action of, say, I don't know, make coffee, which they won't like, don't use that one. But you could then, for instance, just say, well, the group of people that do that would be the admin team. Finish or move to next recipient, so it goes on to the admin team. And then, which I'm sure you'll be doing, you'll be declining that, be returning to sender, so it goes back up the tree. Okay, so that's how you would add a new action. Obviously, thinking more along the clinical lines, that could be doing things like, organise blood forms and things like that. Deleting them off, you've probably got the idea. You just double click, press the delete option, click yes, and that goes. Templates. Now, it depends on whether your surgery is going to use this or not, but templates offer you a facility for sending the letter quickly to, say, a group of people before it goes to the GP. So if I just quickly show you one template to finish this on, because we've done the other two. So I might have a template that I say to coder. Okay, so this is talking about what we had initially, where we said we want to make sure that when the doctor has finished with the letter, it always gets returned to the coder. So what I would do is I would say section patient, the only one in the drop-down list, iWorkflow, and basically the user that I want it to go to, I want it to, well, prompt really. So I want to say on there just prompt for user, so that I'm still given my full list of users that I can choose. But the powerful option comes under options. Because in here what I can say is I can say route before completion, yes, and I can say that that is going to be, let's choose Mary. Let's say that Mary does the actual coding. And then if I save it, we've got a workflow template. Now I appreciate you've not seen those in action yet, so let me quickly go back to File Documents. Let me go and file another letter. And now because workflow the document is ticked, you'll get this extra box that pops up, which is there. And if it's definitely going to go to the coder, then you would click that and it's automatically filled that section out. But you are given the choice. There was a none option that was there, which literally wouldn't have filled that in. It would have still been on no, and then you could have just bypassed it and sent to someone else. So there might be, think about certain letters that come through your practice. You know, do they always have to go to, after the doctor's seen them, do they always have to go to Mary because she has to fill out the cytology form? Do they always have to go to someone because we do checks on, asthma, asthma and things like that? So certain types of letters will want to be treated differently within your system, and what that section does, trying to cancel out this, sorry, what that section does is gives you a facility to manage them. Okay guys, so thank you for joining this webinar. It fetches us to close of the demonstration that we've done. I'm now going to spend about 10 minutes just answering questions if you have any. If you don't, obviously at this point you are free to leave. If you don't want to ask any questions within the chat box, but you have got something that you do want to raise, you can send an email to support@docman.com. And I'll endeavour to get those answered for you as quick as possible. We've got the support team looking at that as well. I hope it's been enjoyable. I hope you found it easy to follow. I am keen on gauging some feedback, which you can pop into the chat panel as well. Other people won't be able to see the questions that are being raised, I don't think. If that's not the case, you can tell me. I am new to this new system that we're using. The future plans that we have got is we are going to be offering more of these Love Docman webinars on a frequent basis, and even though this has been quite a detailed demo that we have done, we will go into more detailed sections as well, and we can talk about certain aspects of Docman in a lot more detail. So if you are leaving me at this point, well, it's been a pleasure. If not, I'm just going to pause the microphone and I'm going to pause the screen a second. I'm going to have a look what questions we've got and I'll be back with you shortly. Thank you.